Record. Chapter 10. Midat HaNekiyut, cleanliness. So after we did 2 already, right? We did, well, we've actually done 3. Talmud Torah, the first thing in our spiritual journey is you got to learn the Torah. Number 2, you got to become aware of your deeds. You got to check your deeds. You got to be aware of what you're doing and be watchful. Number 3, you need a little bit of zeal. You need zrizut. You need to do things with alacrity and with special energy. Okay. Oh, Professor's with us and Donna's with us. Fantastic. Okay. What is, when we speak about character, what do we mean that a person has a clean character? What could that mean? Person is
honesty.
Clean. Sorry?
Honesty.
Very good. Excellent. It has a lot to do with honesty. More about honesty with oneself than with others. It's got to do about your inner honesty. Are you honest with yourself? Exactly.
Is that the same as integrity? Yeah, maybe.
I think so. I think so. I think it's an aspect of integrity. Integrity is also a very big word. You know, you can act with integrity towards others as well. But this, we'll see, is inner focused. This is inner focused. And he says like this: the trait of cleanliness is that a man, sorry, he wrote this book in the 1600s. He couldn't imagine a woman would ever read it. But here we are. Okay, we're okay. Well, we all, no joke. The trait, we can all identify as a man today. Let's just do that, and then we'll find with the book. The trait of cleanliness is that a man be completely clean of all bad traits and all sins. And I really think it is a bit like a lens, right? Some of us wear glasses, some of us, we all take pictures. When you've got a dirty lens, you don't see the world clearly. You don't have a clean view of the world. You look at the schmutz. The schmutz is in the way, and it distorts how you look at the world. So let's see how this works. Not only for sins which are familiar and recognized, right? That we'll come back to that, right? We saw that by zehirut, when you have to be watchful. That's for what everyone knows is a sin, but also for those to which one's heart is enticed to rationalize that it is permissible. So cleanliness and the honesty we should have with ourselves is to be aware of when we are making rationalizations, right? It's human condition, right? We want something, we're enticed to do it, and then we have a conscience. We have a guilty conscience, and we have to placate it. So we rationalize in order to make things permissible when really we should not. Justified only because his heart was afflicted by some desire and not entirely purified of it. So the cleanliness is that your decisions are made without the input and the skewed judgment that one's desires can have. And of course, this is a very subtle part of human psychology, right? We make connections, we make associations which no one would ever believe. I don't know. Abraham is here, Kier on his screen. who worked in advertising for some of the best agencies in the world. And it's amazing to me that they actually worked it out, how people think, right? Why would you think that a 1983 Buick would sell better because it's good looking outside, right? Isn't that funny? In 1983, that's as good. Look at her. I mean, is she a Beis Yaakov teacher or something? Right? Once again, when I did my Google search for my picture for car ads with women, I had to move fast and furiously through the pictures, right? But look at that. Right now, hang on a second. What, I mean, Abraham, maybe you could explain this to us, right? How did they understand that people would think, you know, if I got that car, maybe I'm a step closer to getting that girl. It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. But that's really what they appeal to. They appeal to this very basic, very I'm going to say natural desire within, I guess, men who are buying the Buick Regal, and put this girl there, and it sells cars. It's really astonishing. Avram, do you have anything to add to the psychology of it?
Well, it's product and association. You have your product or service, and this is a very good example you put up. You associate that product with something that the market, that your target audience can associate with. So if somebody who didn't like women dressed like that wouldn't reject the car, and so really it is associating something that you want, like milk. If you have a picture of a boy, say milk, fitting well and muscular or whatever, and you associate that with milk, then you automatically put the link together. And you want to buy not only the product, you want to buy what comes with it. But there's no dishonesty. If you're dishonest in advertising, then people won't buy your product second time. The success of a product is its second and third sale. So if it doesn't work, first of all, you're lying about it, then they reject it. So you really do a lot of damage to your product. This is a good example of product and association.
Well, but why isn't this a lie, Abraham? Come on. You're closer to her when you get to the Buick than you were before.
You know what I find interesting, Rabbi? You haven't mentioned the house.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's also, yeah, you're right. Good. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, it's a funny background, right? But I guess
it's a rich background.
Right. They were appealing to someone with a nice kept house. You're not quite sure if it's a single house or double house. Maybe there's that double thing.
Mhm.
All those associations, very interesting. Avram, why isn't this lying though?
Well, I mean, you're associating this woman with an environment around her, with the car. With the car, that's not a lie. So it just happens to be that they're appealing to the target audience who wants to elevate their standard of living or whatever.
Or maybe I got the whole ad wrong. Maybe it's for her. I think she's got a beauty. Maybe they were appealing to the female market. That's interesting. Do you think?
I think so, because she has a briefcase in her hand, and it looks like it's for the working woman. So she's in style.
Look at that. You see me? Am I my male cop? No, there's got nothing to do, right? It's a good ad because it would appeal to both, actually. Wow. Okay. Now we look at this and think, but we do think like this. It's a really outstanding thing that we make these associations, and the choices we make can be very subtle, that we don't realize that deep down there's something like, I'll go there, I might see this person, that person, or
Just back to the question of lying. If you accept a market-based economy and capitalism, everyone is going to be competing for your attention to sell you goods, and they'll do it in the most effective way they can. I'm not sure one should call that lying.
No, I'm just questioning Abraham, because Abraham, he brought that in. He said that if you lie in an ad, you won't get your sales.
It may be ineffective. Yeah, maybe ineffective. Yeah. Okay.
I don't even understand. Good looking outside, good thinking inside. What does that even mean?
You have to read the copy there, you can't read what it says.
Oh,
Why, Linda, you never had an 83 Buick Regal?
no.
Obviously not.
And I never look like that woman either.
Okay.
You've got time. You've got time, Linda.
I'm too short. I can't grow anymore. In fact, I'm shrinking.
Have you noticed
Okay.
the driveway is on a slant?
You also study the target audience and you appeal to them who you know that will be interested in that product.
Yeah.
So it's pointless if you had, something else that, this is what this target
Okay,
audience,
excuse me.
for that quality of life, wants.
The Regal's interior not only looks rich and luxurious, but it's intellectual. It's intellectual. What is that word?
Intellectually designed.
There you
Intelligent.
go. There you go.
Intelligent. It's intelligently designed. It's so smart. Although I will tell you, I always say my car right now is really smart too.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Marlborough Country. I don't know if you remember these, right? But these are classics, right? Where
That's how I start.
that's how you started?
Yep,
There you go.
but I wasn't a cowboy on a horse. I was a teenager.
So why did Marlborough appeal to you?
I don't remember. Maybe somebody else. I didn't do it because of the ads. I did it because of peer pressure.
Uh-huh. But there's a huge image associated with smoking, right? People.
Rugged man.
Real man.
Yeah.
Real.
Yep.
That's a good example of the product association.
Mhm.
But now you have to have those warning signs.
Real man if you smoke Marlboro.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
May I add something?
The interesting thing is that even with the warning signs,
Yeah.
That's right.
people still prefer this crazy association rather than what the seichel,
Rabbi,
yes.
Answer from
back in the late 60s, early 70s, this was the Marlboro Man. That's what he was called, the Marlboro Man.
Mhm.
And when you were doing the Buick thing, I was thinking back to, I was in college, and one of the classes I was in, there was it was a very Jewish area, Brooklyn, New York. I went to Brooklyn College, and there was this guy in one of my classes who, even at the tender age of 20, 22, was balding. He was chubby. He was schleppy, he smoked Marlboros. And I remember thinking, I'll bet he thinks he's the Marlboro Man. That's exactly what I remember thinking about him.
That's very funny. All right, and there we go. Right, your
sports.
Heineken.
bottle of beer, right, is somehow you're going to associate it with
All game.
a ball game, and it's
Competition.
and competition, right?
And you're going to win.
And what's the connection? Zero. But it's just that association that someone that likes sports and enjoys the competition, etc., will okay, there's some appeal here. So yes,
There's something else. Look at the bottles. Those are flags from different countries.
yep.
So it's saying that it's internationally known. And
Right.
so it has to be
Very
better
clever.
because the world knows it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Abraham, you'll have to do a whole session with us on advertising and what goes into it. It is fascinating, right?
so-
Because Heineken, I think, is made in, where's Heineken made? Denmark? I think it's a Danish.
Holland?
Is it a Danish beer or Dutch?
Holland,
It's Dutch?
Yeah, it's Holland.
hot Dutch.
And you don't,
Let's-
okay, so you got the Netherlands here, but Germany, England,
Japan.
France, what's it got to do with them?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
If
Okay,
you drink this, you're worldly.
sorry,
If you drink this, you're worldly.
that's correct. And in fact, you're going to play better soccer than you started.
That's a soccer stadium.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So let's learn. I want to take a detour to one of my favorite commentaries on the Torah, and that is the Sforno, Rav Avadia Sforno, Italian, 15th century, I think, no, 16th century. He says, on the verse in the Torah says, "V'hanachash haya arum mikol chayat hasadeh." The serpent was the shrewdest of all wild beasts. What does that, who was the snake in the Garden of Eden? What was it doing there? And so he says it's all allegorical. Don't think that there was an animal. The Nachash, he says, this is his commentary, is another word for Satan, the Satan, which itself is a way of describing the evil urge. Something we've often discussed, the Yetzer Hara, that which causes man from inside to go off. The reason why this evil urge is compared to a serpent is that just like a serpent, which makes itself as invisible as possible, blending in with its environment and yet causes more damage than the most prominently visible obstacles. So the evil urge lurks where no one does suspect to find it, right? So that's right. That's what the evil urge, this Yetzer Hara, was in the Garden of Eden, speaking inside of Eve and Adam. And then he says, look at these words, they're beautiful. The insidious nature of the evil urge consists of the fact that it conjures up in our imagination something desirable, which because of its desirability, we rationalize into considering as harmless, harboring no physical or spiritual danger for us. Greed, lust, right? Greed, who wants more? Who wants power? Lust, who wants pleasure? Combined with one's imagination is a powerful tool for leading man into sin. Unless man is able to harness the power of reason against such insidious attacks, to trick him into disobedience against God by giving in to his desire for gratification of his senses, he will fall victim to the evil urges, machinations. And that is a lot of what we need to do in our life, right? Really look inside, be extremely honest with what is motivating us. Why do we make the choices we make? And try to see if we can find what are called negiut in Hebrew, the Balei Musa. You always spoke about negius. A person has a no, maze negiut, Uri?
Lingua, not inclination. No.
No, it's more like you've got a nogea bedava. You're mixed in. You can't see objectively. You're subjective.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't.
And he will not. Okay, so back to the Mesilat Yesharim, he says that someone who has nikiyut, someone that is clean, will not be swayed by any desire. He will recognize anything which is a sin, even for the most minuscule. He will see its evil and will distance from it. Right? And we see that there are things around which can be very destructive, and we don't see them. Right? You meet someone, and all of a sudden you hear they got the virus, and then you got the virus, right? Because we don't see everything. So, okay, so now he asks, he says, what's the difference between this and someone who is watchful? We mentioned this before, but he who is watchful is cautious in his deeds and sees to it that he does not sin in what he already knows, which is familiar to everyone, that is a sin. We're not going to go do that. But after a man habituates himself to great extent in watchfulness till he has cleansed himself, a first cleansing of well-known sins, and has habituated himself in the service of God with zeal and love and yearning to his Creator, who has grown strong within him, behold, the power of his habituation will distance him from physical matters and cling his intellect towards spiritual perfection, and eventually he will be able to attain perfect cleanliness, so that he will not be seduced nor deceived by the darkness of the physical, and his deeds will be completely clean. I actually know someone. I'm pretty sure. I can't swear about it, so I can't mention his name either. But I think he always drives at the speed limit. Right? How many people do we know that keep to the speed limit? I mean, it's like 25 on my road or something ridiculous, of course, right? But I know someone who he's like, okay, if that's the speed limit, I'll drive at the speed limit. What difference does it make? You know, the truth is, it makes very little difference. When speeding along, what are you going to save? A minute or two maximum? Yes. And it raises your stress, and it's dangerous. Okay, the scrutiny which is necessary for cleanliness is the most difficult, for the sin is concealed by rationalizations that it is permitted. So it takes real self-honesty, real discernment, right? Can you find Elmo? Right?
Yeah.
You need, right? You need to look very carefully inside and think to yourself, why am I making this decision? What are there? Maybe that's the best, right? The best question to ask yourself is, am I making this decision because of any hidden desire that I have that should not be involved in this decision? Right? Is it trying to think of an example?
I don't know what it all looks like. It's not movable. She's driving me crazy.
Donna, I think we're all listening to your messages.
I'm sorry.
You might want to mute or not listen to them. A very interesting story is told about Rav Yisrael Salanta. He had a son who actually pretty much left observant lifestyle and became a professor in the University of St. Petersburg. He actually became a math professor. And that's why one of the reasons why, well, I don't know, yeah, but maybe one of the reasons why one of the top students of Rav Yisrael Salanta He's known as Rav Itzela Peterburger, right? Why is he called Peterburger? Because he went to St. Petersburg. He lived in St. Petersburg. He went there. Was to try and he sent his student to try and have some sway over his son. I don't know how successful he was, but Rav Yisrael Salanta said, you know, you could. He said about himself. He said, you know, obviously at this stage of my life, you know, my efforts in teaching Torah should be to people that are interested, who will follow it, who will continue it. My son is not interested. So, but should a fire, you know, should a house catch on fire, and I would enter the house and I could save two people, either my top student or my son, who do you think I would save? And he said, of course, my son. He said, because, you know, for family, it's a very interesting story, because I think most of the time we think one's, not favoritism, but one's being partial to family is expected. It's right. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not the best decision. And sometimes maybe other people are better for that. I don't know if my mother will agree, but I know that my grandfather, who was a very influential person, was very against, I think it's called, is it nepotism?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he would not put a family member in a position just because they were family. They had to be merit-based, the best person for the job. And it's things like that we're talking about, right? It's things like that it's, how do you know? You know, how do you know? You have to really ask yourself and be very honest with yourself and say, am I doing this just because they are my relative, or is this the best thing for society, or for whatever it is, for the service of God, the honor of God, wherever it might be? Okay. The Gemara says the majority of people are guilty of forms of theft, a minority in immorality, but all are guilty of the dust of slander, traces of slander. And he says, because we can't, we actually, it's so difficult to be, to know sometimes that, you know, you might be saying something about another person. It could be true and it could be just and it could be, but you're going to add something. You're going to add something that's just a little negative, because, you know, one day you said hello to them and they didn't really say hello to you. You know, you kind of, you got something. You got an axe to grind. And that's what it says in Psalms. Who will ascend the mountain of God? Who will stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart. Beautiful Hebrew, by the way. Mi ya'aleh bahar Hashem, or mi yakum bimkom kodsho, neki kafayim ova levav. A very beautiful, beautiful verse. And of course, the mountain that he's talking about is Mount Sinai and the Torah, right? And that a person to really be able to digest and become someone living according to Torah needs a ki kapayim. One's hands have to be clean, and you have to have a pure heart. And certainly, he says, this trait is difficult to attain, very difficult. For man's nature is weak, his heart is easily seduced, and he permits for himself things that would allow for self-deception. And this is what it means in Pirkei Avot, today to work and tomorrow to receive the reward. But it does take a lot of what we would call spiritual work to be honest, really honest with who you are. And I'd like to add that if you can get there, if we could get there, there's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of freedom, because freedom at the end of the day, it's like I always like to say, it's like a plant that's growing. You don't expect the plant to be a plum tree, right? It's a daffodil. So it's not, freedom doesn't mean the ability to do anything. Freedom means the ability to be yourself. And, you know, if there's a wall planted right next to the daffodil, it's not free to grow where it wants to. It's inhibited by the wall. But if you take the wall away, then it can grow beautifully and organically into exactly what it's meant to become. So it's these rationalizations and these things that which are very almost subconscious, almost all the time, actually, subconscious, but that we need to work with and think about, and not let, you know, trip us up that we make decisions which are not true to our essential being and our essential goodness, which we are able to do, and which would make the best impact we can on this world. Okay, folks, that's chapter 10. Thank you. Any questions, comments? I'll turn it to...
Rabbi, why
Yes.
do you have Muhammad Ali?
Oh, I
in the-
just thought it would be a very nice, it's a good image of someone working hard, you know?
I thought maybe it was because he said he was the greatest, and it was self-deception.
No, he was the
He
greatest.
was great.
I know, but he walked around saying, I'm the greatest. It's like,
Yeah, I don't think he read this book, but he did, you know, he said about himself something my Shlomo likes to tell me. That he said, how many sit-ups do you do? He said, well, I don't really know, because I only start counting when it gets painful. Right? He worked hard. He worked very hard. So to me, he's an emblem of someone that worked hard. Yeah, he had other issues.
He certainly did.
Can I ask, why use the word cleanliness instead of purity?
Wow.
That's a very good question. I thought about that. There's another thing called tahara.
Yeah.
And that's really translated as purity. I'm happy to change the word. I actually looked on my thesaurus, and I didn't find a better word than cleanliness. Actually, honesty is very good. Maybe honesty with self would be a more meaningful term. Well, it's a bit more complicated.
Self.
Yeah, I think they're different. Cleanliness and honesty. I think they're different.
Rabbi, sometimes even when you do make a good decision, the consequences are not good. Things happen. And when that happens to me, I use this phrase, seek out your intentions. And if my intention was pure and things went askew or awry, I can't take blame, or I don't want to say it that way. I can't take responsibility for something having turned out incorrectly if my intentions were pure.
Beautiful.
That's
That is beautiful.
Seek out your intentions. Yes, that is the message of this class.
But they can also say the road to you know where is paved with good intentions.
That's true too.
So you may have the good intention, and as Audrey, if life gets in the way of living, maybe your intention gets askewed. But I know plenty of people who say, but I meant well, while they were doing something that was really not nice.
Yeah, but it was not nice. My point is, if you do something that is nice, you've given it thought, you know it is right,
That's
and yet
different.
something turns out wrong. That's the part I'm talking about, not
Okay.
the gray area of maybe it just wasn't the best thing. But
Unintended consequences.
We're not,
Oh, nice.
we're not omnipotent.
Politics is full of it.
say that again, all it takes is what?
Unintended consequences.
Right?
Very good.
The government is full of them, you know, they do want to do good things, and then there's a reaction. They got to make another law to get that straight. We're all guilty of that, if guilt is associated.
The other thing, we don't have complete control. The things that we can't control.
It's true.
Good. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Everyone have a lovely week. And
You as
Yeah.
well.
You too.
these are very high levels. Try it at home a little bit, not too much.
But then smoke Marlboros.
No. We'll be having a Marlboro smoke up on Wednesday.
Thank
God
you,
bless.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
Have a good week, everyone.